it because they didn't, sometimes it wasn't the person they were married to, or they didn't want the scandal or whatever. So cars we were making a big thing then. And then the I think is one of the strangest ones that kind of caught me. I still don't know if I explained it well enough, but in 1926, the American Broadcast Corporation, NBC, started simulcast coast-to-coast radio. So for the first time in human history, everybody from one end of the continent to the other was listening to the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of compare that to like the moon. When we first landed on the moon, I was like 12 years old, and everybody in my neighborhood was standing outside looking at the moon like it's not there every day. But that day, it was really something, And people thought, is this the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end? And it was that way with the radio. Because if you think about how strange that is, there'd be some rancher in Colorado or Nevada or someplace, and listening to the same thing people in San Francisco and Manhattan are listening to.
Well, people.
It was a live broadcast, too.
Yeah, and those live broadcasts, what would happen is families that were fortunate enough to afford a radio, right? Family members, would come, even if they were, miles away, they would come to whoever had that radio, and they would listen to some of the shows. They didn't have TV, so you had things like Amos and Andy, and that's even before that. But I mean, like the Grand Old Opera was very popular back then. You had a lot of things on the radio that it was just like TV. They would sit and look at the radio and close their eyes and imaginate.
Yeah, because it's a very amazing thing if you think about it. It is an amazing invention.
Oh, yeah. It was.
Because before that, if you wanted to hear music, you had to go down to the town and, hear somebody play, or you played your own piano. That's why they used to sell sheet music like they sold records. People would run out and buy the sheet music to the latest song, and they'd go and play it on their piano because they'd sight read.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that, even that. When I was a little kid, I'm 68 years old. I'm not really old, but I'm not young anymore. I remember at my aunt's place that she had an old player's, piano. And, she would load in the music of the 20s and 30s on it. It was interesting watching it, play it, and just listening to it. And the family members had to be there. Mm-hmm. I was a young kid. I couldn't figure out why, but I mean, everybody was there to listen to it. It was a big thing.
Yeah. And now, it's happening right before our eyes too with the internet, because, you could just get online and find a song from whenever. You could find it online. And, before you'd have to try to find it in a record store or, some mailing list or something like that. I remember a friend of mine came back from Indonesia, and he had this record about these monks that do this song called the Monkey Chant. And it's like, a whole album side of this one song. And it's like really kind of funny. And, 30 years ago, that was like a rare record. Like if you heard about the Monkey Chant, somebody'd be like, what? You know about the Monkey Chant? And now, I could flip it on right now. You could flip it on right now from YouTube or whatever and play it. It's not such a rare thing anymore. Everybody's heard it. In many ways, that has made music better.
Oh, I think so. But getting back to like the homicides, what got you into, people killing people, robbing people, doing these murders and all that stuff? Let's talk about that.
Well, when I moved to California 18 years ago, I was at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and I was writing for this music magazine called Maximum Music Magazine. And that was kind of a Wisconsin, Chicago, Twin Cities, covered a wide range of people. And I always loved history. I always loved reading about it. And I moved here, and of course I started digging through history, and I kept on reading about the same people, especially the Western ones. It was always Dead-Eye Dick and, Rattlesnake Dick and Black Bart. And it's like, how many times can you write about these people? I wanted to find out about the forgotten ones, the ones that were a big deal when it happened, but, when memory fades, you can only find it in the papers of what happened. Because you certainly can't trust it in books. I've found so many mistakes. There is one. It's been repeated time and time again about this guy in San Francisco at the turn of the 20th century, and he had a pig farm out in the hills outside of San Francisco, and he'd go to Embarcadero, get some tramps, as they called them then, to come work on his farm, and then when they wanted to get paid, he'd kill them and feed them to his pigs. And the story is that he won the state fair like 3 years in a row and all this kind of stuff. I looked that up. And I saw this in like 3 different books. I looked it up through the papers, through the California State Fair records, and the guy does not exist. But so many people believed it from somewhere. And I think it was from, the crime writer J. Robert Nash?
Yes.
He wrote Blood Letters and Bad Men. He kind of started it. And actually, that's kind of how I started my interest in crime, because of the way he writes and the books that he wrote. He's still alive now, too. He's like 80 years old, but it's amazing. So he would plant little bombs in his books to see if other people were plagiarizing him, and that's how he caught. And I believe that's one of his little bombs that he planted. And same thing with Penny Borglund. I wrote about in Death in California. She was like this 18-year-old bright-eyed Bobby Sox girl in 1957, and she killed a man for just because she wanted to know how it was, just like it was like Camus or something, The Stranger. And there were so many wrong things about the crime. The man that was killed was made into this leering wolf playboy guy, and it couldn't have been more true. The guy's widow called me not long after the book came out and told me I got it right. That was the only person that got it right. So...
Why was she? How many people did she kill? Was it this one, or was it numerous guys?
Yeah, just one guy. One guy. She just was out in the hills in San Mateo, right in San Francisco, pretty close to San Francisco, and she just wanted to know what it was like. She got about 7 years. She was released, and she's, I guess, living in Southern California or something. So many people got that wrong, that this guy was like this horrible person. He tried to rape her. And then when I did all the research, I was like, this guy didn't do anything.
How did she kill him?
Shot him 18 times. She had to reload twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did she get caught?
She got caught because there were some detectives that really did some gumshoe work. They found out that the bullets were target bullets, and they're the kind that you would make yourself. So they found out what company made the press for it, and then they went and tracked down how many were sold in the Bay Area. They traced everyone down until they found like an 18-year-old guy that was Penny's friend that made them.
Wow. Did she just pick the guy?
Really good.
Did she just pick the guy out at random and shot him, or did she lure him into it? Or?
Yeah, she would go and walk out in the hills for exercise and stuff, and they say that he saw her once and they chatted and stuff, because he would drive out there and people would just throw their yard waste out there, in 1957. And he was like a professional gardener. He worked for the San Francisco Country Club. And he also did his own work on the side, and that's where he would dump his green. And she would see him there. She saw him there once before, and he saw her, and he stopped. She was walking, and he says, "Hey, you want to ride?" And he had a really cool car. He had like a Chrysler New Yorker. She jumps in the car. She starts shooting the gun out the window, and he was like, whoa, wait a minute. And she turned it on him to start emptying it.
Oh, wow.
And then opened the door. He fell out. She fired again and reloaded again, fired again. That's why they thought it was a crime of passion.
And she did that just to find out what it was like to kill somebody.
Yep.
And only got...
Yeah, it happened in... Huh?
And only got 7 years?
Yeah, because she was a juvenile.
Wow. Did she ever do anything after that?
Huh?
Did she do any other thing after she got out of prison, or is that the only thing she was ever...
That's it. Yep.
Wow.
That's it.
What else do we have here that you can,
this is my favorite story I found, and I couldn't believe it. It's great because I found it backwards, and sometimes that's like the best way to find these stories. So in June 28th, 1926, in Tampa, Florida, there was this family, the Rowell family, and it was like multi-generation family. Supposedly, the matriarch of the family was over 100 years old. So there was like uncles, aunts, cousins, multiple. It was a big house, and there was a lot of going on there. It was like the kind of house nobody knocked on the door. You just walked into the kitchen. There was always a pot of coffee on. I'm sure there was always some, illegal brew there too. And, people would play cards. It was kind of like the neighborhood social house. My grandmother had one. My mom grew up in a house like that in East Chicago, Indiana. So one day, it was on June 28th, this teenage girl comes over to the house to meet up with Caroline Rowell. They were going to go look for jobs together. And looks in the window, nobody answers the door, which was like ridiculous. And she sees like, a body. And it turns out there was like 5 people there. 4 people dead in that house. Their old mother, there's 3 Rowells were dead, and they had a roomer at the house who was also dead. They were all beaten in the head with a railroad spike, right? So, the cops, they rounded up all the usual suspects and shook down the family and thought it was some kind of, mob hit or something like that. Case went cold. Just like a year later, almost to the date, on May 26, 1927, this other family gets killed. 5 of them, even a little infant baby. 5 members of the Merle family get killed in the same exact way. Turns out, this is the same guy that killed the Rowell family. And this guy, he was a heroin addict, and his name was Benjamin Levins. He was a fisherman. And turns out that he went to the Rowell house to talk to their boarder that they were seeing the same woman. And they came to a disagreement, and Levins smacked the guy over the head with the mallet. And he's like, oh, man, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to kill everybody. So he just waited until everybody went to sleep and killed them in their beds one by one. And then he went and signed on to a fishing boat and left Tampa and was like through the Gulf of Mexico for almost a year. And then he comes back and he scores some heroin there, like drinking Sterno, him and this buddy he met. And this guy told him, goes, hey, that's where, remember that big murder that happened last year? Well, one of the guys that didn't get killed lives in that house. And so this guy, being such a psycho and probably having his senses all numbed from heroin or something, sneaks into that house and kills 5 more people.
Oh, wow.
And they weren't even related. They weren't related at all.
Wow. Now, Dave, we need to go on break. We'll be back in 3 minutes. We're talking about, Homicide in America, and we'll be back.
I'll tell you the rest of the story.
Yeah, he will, too. We'll be back.
All right.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.